Welcome into another episode of Happening Hoops Chats. This is episode 4, and I am pleased to be joined today by Herschel Jenkins, one of the new assistant coaches at Stonehill, and they are new to Division One, joining the NEC, the Northeast Conference, this upcoming season. Thank you for taking the time to come on today, Herschel.
Of course, man. Appreciate you. Love this. Love that you're kind of getting your name out there and our name out there with Stonehill. So happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you have a background that, is in the Northeast here in New York City and in the Boston area some. This past season, you spent time working for Coach Joe Jones at BU. And that's how we kind of know each other through the Patriot League. Because For those of you who don't know, I do stats for Loyola, Maryland in the Patriot League. And we got connected that way. So at one of the Loyola games, I was having a conversation with some of my colleagues there, about different coaches in the league. And I believe this was probably prompted by Coach O when Lafayette came to town. And he was just greeting everybody at the scorer's table for his final, trip around the Patriot League there. And we were talking about just kind of, what some of the best coaches in the league were. And the consensus that we kind of came to was Joe Jones and Fran O'Hanlon were two of the best, just in terms of the respect they showed everyone and, how they ran their program, but also just, the success on the court, both of them multiple-time Patriot League champions. So Herschel, what did you take away from working with Coach Jones?
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing I took from him is he's an incredible person. Whenever anyone talks to me about him, I always say he has to be a top 5 human being in the coaching profession. Like if you talk to him, it doesn't matter if you've known him 10 years or for 10 seconds, he treats you as if he's known you for 10 years. And I think that is what makes him such a great coach, is that he's a good person. So like me, I came in, he didn't know me, but he treated me like I was one of his sons. Or I've been on his staff forever, which was awesome. And he treats our players like that. So it's easy to play for someone like that when he loves you and he treats you like a person that has high value and high character. He's so easy to play for, so that when he does get on you, and it's hard on you, you know where it's coming from. A place of love, place of respect. So, he's just an absolutely tremendous person.
Yeah, that is similar to what I've heard from those in the Patriot League circles, that he's just, an incredible person. So that it must have been great to be able to be on staff with him and just soak all that up. So when I was in Boston a couple months ago, I was up there for my graduation, and it was actually the day I think that the news broke of your moving to Stonehill from Boston. Yeah. But we were talking about, how the coaching staff at Stonehill, they're moving up from Division II to Division I. And it's basically, 3 guys with heavy director of basketball operations backgrounds. And, just to be frank, kind of basically no assistant coaching experience at the Division I level. You guys have operations and some on Division II. But how do you think that the Dobo experience is going to help you guys, and in what areas might you guys need to pick up some ground to compete with other staffs?
Yeah, I mean, I think being a Dobo, especially myself, I was a Dobo at Fordham for 2 years in the Atlantic 10. And when you are the director of operations, you literally run the program. Mm-hmm. So everything from the head coach down to the manager, down to the 17th player, on the bench, like, the ins and outs of the entire program. So we actually kind of need that on our Stonehill staff, because, we're moving from D2 to D1, but also we don't have a Dobo. So, yeah. We're all gonna have to kind of do those things piece by piece. But I think, even though, like you said, we can't technically be on the floor coaching or recruiting, stuff like that, like I've done it personally myself at the Division III level. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Langhurst, who's one of our assistants, he did at the Division II level at Lemoyne. So we have experience doing that. Jason Karras did it last year.
Yeah, he's volunteers. Jason Karras and I, for the podcast audience, we're both Valpo guys. He was a senior and a walk-on in the team when I was a freshman there at Valpo in our last year in the Horizon League. So Jason and I go back a little bit.
Exactly. So, we've all kind of done it. Like even me, myself, I did it for a half a season, my last season at Fordham, where I was an interim assistant coach.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a lot of things that we've done that people may not see that go on behind closed doors, especially the COVID year where they allowed, the 2 support staff members to now be on the court.
Yeah.
So basically my last year at Fordham, I was able to be on the court the whole time. So I was able to, help with scouts and help to help coach the team whenever an assistant coach wasn't there. And I could even do that at BU. And I'm sure Jimmy Lenhurst and Jason Karras, they did that as well. So, we have that experience. And I tell people all the time, basketball is basketball. So whether I'm at BU or I'm at Stonehill, we're still trying to score more points than the other team, and we're just trying to stop them from scoring. So, basketball is basketball.
Yeah, keeping it simple.
Yeah.
And for Stonehill, because a lot of the listeners are really not going to be too familiar with them. Frankly, I wasn't as familiar. I mean, I did my research here for the podcast, but I didn't know a whole lot about Stonehill last year. And so teams have different identities. Purdue is known for developing big men. Syracuse has the zone defense. West Virginia presses. Like, I know it's still early on, but what is going to be the identity of Skyhawk basketball?
Yeah, so we actually had a meeting today with our head coach, Chris Kraus, and the 2 words that he kept saying today were tough and together. So we're obviously going to be tough and we're going to play together. So tough defensively, packing it in, making teams take jump shots. We don't want to give up any layups, any interior points if we don't have to. And together is kind of more of the offensive side of the ball. So I know a lot of people will be familiar with Davidson and the way that they play, like a free-flowing motion offense, a lot of passing, cutting. The ball may not really hit the floor more than 2 or 3 times in terms of a dribble, but the ball will definitely change sides of the floor. A lot of threes. We're going to have a lot of skill out there. We're going to have like a 6'9", 6'8" big, but they can pull other bigs away from the rim. Mm-hmm. So a lot of 5 out. And I think it'd be a really, I don't want to say high powered, but, a really fun and offensive style to watch and to coach.
Yeah, that kind of, the way you're describing it reminds me a little bit of like Bellarmine this year, passing the ball a lot, shooting a high volume of threes. And what you talked about there with the big men, like, because that's the thing, like people, when they think of, the changing game, like big men shooting threes, I think that happens still at the NBA level, but in college, I'd say there's still a decent amount of like back to the basket bigs. And so if you're able to draw them out with a guy, that could really help free things up there on the offensive end.
Absolutely. And like you're familiar with the NEC. We are going to be different from the rest of the NEC. We are absolutely not your typical NEC team. Their bigs are more athletes, bigger dudes that are going to play around 5 to 10 feet. And our guys, they might be big as well, but they're going to have that skill and that perimeter touch to draw them out. So it'd be really interesting to see the balance in the league. So will we have to conform to them, or hopefully they'll have to conform to us?
Yeah, that's always the hope, getting the other team to play your style instead of the other way around. I'm kind of a little disappointed actually that Mount St. Mary's is out of the league now, so that there's not like an NEC team relatively close by that I can see. Because I know maybe with the non-conference or in future years, but it was always nice to just be able to have an NEC team an hour away. Now I think the closest for me is like St. Francis, PA, in the middle of Pennsylvania or Staten Island or Wagner or something. But speaking on that NEC, we've talked before in that I think truthfully I feel that the league is about as wide open as any of them in the country. As I was just talking about, there's some of the recent powerhouses, Bryant, Mount St. Mary's, are gone, and there's been a lot of turnover of both rosters and coaching staffs. I think just off the top of my head, like LIU has a new coach, not this year, but Central Connecticut is fairly new. Fairleigh Dickinson is new. So there's a lot of new pieces in the league. What needs to happen between now and the start of conference play for Stonehill to be competitive and possibly win the NEC?
Yeah, we just got to focus on us and take it day by day. It's easy for us to be like, oh yeah, we got to do what Merrimack did. We got to come and we got to just win it immediately. We got to show these people that we belong. Just take it day by day, practice by practice, skill workout by skill workout. And it sounds like coach talk, but it's the only way to kind of keep yourself grounded. Don't worry about December 28th, our first conference game. Worry about tomorrow, and just get better. And I really think our guys, we have a mature group, we have an older group. I think they understand the task at hand, and they're ready to kind of to take that challenge. And I think as long as they keep their heads, we're going to be able to compete. We have not promised anybody any wins or any type of record, but we will compete. Yeah.
And, I mean, speaking on the topic of wins and records and all that, for those who don't know, programs that are transitioning to Division I have a 4-year essentially transition period where they're not eligible for the NCAA tournament or NIT. You can still participate in the CBI and the basketball classic. Being at Boston last year, you guys accepted a CBI bid. Are you able to give the audience a little bit of a peek behind the curtain as to what it's like for a program in consideration for one of those tournaments, as that would be you guys for the next 4 years? Do they reach out these tournaments and offer you guys a bid or gauge level of interest? What are the decisions that have to be made on the administrative level? Do you get to know the other teams in the tournament? Like I know some of this stuff, but just for our audience, so that they're aware of what transitioning teams can and can't do postseason wise.
Yeah. So like you just said, we were part of the CBI at Boston University. And that kind of stuff actually starts happening. I don't want to say right now, but maybe like September, October, I'm assuming that those organizations already have a list, of teams that they want to reach out to. So they'll kind of gauge your interest with an email like, hey, if you don't make the NCAA tournament, and for us, we can't, are you interested in coming to the CBI or the basketball classic? And then they'll kind of lay out, hey, here's the stipulations. It'll be an 8-team tournament in Daytona Beach, Florida, over 4 days. Here's the cost, because it's not free. Here's the other teams we might be talking to. And they'll give you like, hey, here's the 20 or 30 teams. And you might look at it and say, we're kind of around that level. That seems right. And there'll probably be teams that are a little bit above, a little bit below. And then from there, it's like, okay, we're interested, which is great. But then you have to get, your AD on board. Does it fit within the budget? Does it make sense with the team you have? I think teams like that, tournaments like that personally are great for teams like us because it gives us an extra chance to compete against other teams. Obviously, since we can't compete in the NCAA tournament, I think it's also great for teams that are quote unquote like right there. So like you're like in your league and you're not at the top yet, but like next year you think if you bring everybody back, all right, we're competing for a championship. So you want to get those younger guys used to competing for championships. So you want to, hey, here's what it would look like if we had to win, 3 games in 5 days next year. Like, let's go out and do it.
Yeah.
Like you're still trying to win. Like that's what I think it's really great for those kind of teams. And just, and for a hooper, like me, like just being able to compete out there is always great. But yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're spot on. Like a lot of programs have used it as a stepping stone. Like Chicago won the CBI before they made their run. Nevada then, went to the NCAA tournaments with North Texas. UMBC was in the CIT, back before they got big. And for you guys, it gives you something that, you're not just playing for the regular season. You have an opportunity afterwards. So I got, probably maybe one more question here for you. So who are kind of the guys to watch on Stonehill for fans this year? I know you have a few guys who have been on Division I rosters prior to this year in your rotation. I know Isaiah Burnett is actually on there. We went to school together. He was a year behind me in high school at Glen Country School and went to Navy before transferring up to Stonehill. But is there anybody else in particular, maybe we should have our eyes on?
Yeah, you just mentioned Burnett, Andrew Sims, our returning 4-man, 4 or 5-man. So we'll see where he kind of plays in the rotation. He's one of those skilled bigs that we're going to have that can take someone inside if he has a small guard on him, but then if he has a big, can kind of pull him out. Josh Mack, starting point guard, really tough guard, really well built, can definitely play in the NEC. And then, like you said, we've got some guys who have already played Division I basketball. Cole Bergen played at Northern Colorado, and then last year at Northern State. He's another skilled big, about 6'7", 6'8", can really pass it. He might be our best passer. We'll see if that's true. Max Zagorowski from Franklin and Pierce, about a 6'6", 6'7" kid. Can really shoot it. Shot, I think, 43% last year from three. Deadly. And then the one other name I would say, we just had one of these, our two freshmen, Chad Stinson from North Carolina, and then Ethan Muser from the Hill School. I think he'll be really interesting. 6'8", 6'9" kid, really skilled. And he's really talented, man. Really talented, really young. I think he's got a chance to be something special.
Yeah, the Hill School, I'm familiar. We had a couple of guys on Loyola a few years back who came from there. Good prep, or not prep school, good just private high school outside of the Philly area, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that'll about do it. It's it's been a pleasure to have you on here, Herschel, and for anyone that is in the area, definitely go check out games at Stonehill. I visited their campus when I was up there. It's a beautiful campus, by the way.
Absolutely gorgeous campus.
Like, yeah, as long as you get recruits on campus there, you should have it sold.
Yeah, I remember when I was interviewing, someone asked me had I ever been there, and I was like, nope. And they're like, well, you're in for a surprise because it's absolutely gorgeous. And I was like, yeah, you were not lying, man. It's amazing.
And even the neighborhood around it's just a very nice, quiet residential neighborhood. Like it's awesome.
Great.
Yeah. So thanks, Herschel, for coming on Happening Hoops Chats here. Episode 4, and we'll have plenty more episodes coming out. There's going to be a lot more great guests, so be sure to tune in, subscribe to the channel, and give the video a like if you enjoyed it. Thanks for the time.
Of course, man. Appreciate you.
Okay.